Times are slow, but there are still opportunities to generate revenue for your personal enterprise. And I'm going to share that on this segment of the Gig Geezer. If this is your first time checking out the Gig Geezer, if you're a returning visitor of the Gig Geezer, thanks for coming by. And if you would not mind, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I said there are opportunities to generate revenue for your personal business enterprise, meaning that while I may not be giving you companies upon companies upon companies and brokers upon brokers upon brokers and carriers upon carriers upon carriers and gig apps upon gig apps upon gig apps, what I'm going to share with you was how I have executed, at least this week, generating revenue that is going to amount to me more than likely earning over $3,000 this week. And this is still during what has been a slow period of time for many of us who are operating gig apps, or even more specifically, those of us who have ownership and operation of a sprinter/cargo van. Now, I'm in the parking lot of a home improvement store, Lowe's. I managed to snag two opportunities this morning, one here in the Columbia, South Carolina metropolitan area, and the other one is going to be over in Sumter, South Carolina. But my time out today is going to end with a catering opportunity from Delivered. And so basically, in about 4 hours, I'm going to earn well over $215. That's a fact. But also for this week, my business enterprise will have generated over $3,000 in revenue. Why am I talking in terms of revenue as opposed to money earned? Is because I think that is really the more proper way of defining or characterizing what I've been doing, especially now since my sprinter/cargo van operation is looking right at now $100,000 for the year. It has to be seen as revenue that has been generated. That is how business people think. That is how business people talk. They don't talk about money earned. They talk about revenue generated. Before I get into really the nooks and crannies of each of these delivery opportunities for today, what I'm going to do is, as I mentioned, share with you at least how the revenue was generated, but also just give you a little insight on some other things that have occurred this week. So this week started Monday, October 23rd, 2023. I managed to book a brokered opportunity from North Carolina, about an hour north of Charlotte. In fact, it was mentioned in this segment of the Gig Geezer, going down to Winterville, Georgia. Winterville, Georgia is in the middle of nowhere, but the most prominent city that is within range of Winterville is Athens, Georgia, which is the University of Georgia campus. That trip was 275 miles from pickup to drop off, and it earned me $450. Then the next day, October 24th, 2023, I had a freight day. I had a gig app day, a last mile delivery day, and I had 4 opportunities. The first two originated from the Columbia, South Carolina metropolitan area. My first pickup was from a tile place in which I was transporting home improvement or tile product to Beaufort, South Carolina. Beaufort is known for a lot of things. In fact, a couple of scenes from the movie Forrest Gump was filmed in Beaufort. In fact, I often have told folk when I was married, my ex, born and raised Ladies Island, and those scenes were literally about 25 minutes from where she was born and raised. So anyway, that opportunity earned me over $280. But I also picked up some home improvement stuff from Lowe's, and that was a drop off along the way. In fact, it was a rake. It was a rake along the way as I was heading to another pickup, a Lowe's pickup on the Freight app in Sumter, South Carolina, and I'll explain very shortly what I mean by how this all worked out. The next pickup was along the way to Sumter, South Carolina, picking up a rake. The trip took all of 10 minutes, pick up to drop off. That earned me $34.02. From there, I went along Garner's Ferry Road to Sumter and picked up a door that earned me $37.26. Now, that drop-off was in Alcaloo, about 20 minutes from the store, but it was along the way to I-95. And so once I hit I-95, I just go down to Beaufort, drop off the tile, and then I happened to catch another opportunity. I had money waiting on me in Columbia, in which I dropped off I dropped off some home improvement stuff from another Lowe's. That opportunity earned me $53.25. So altogether, I earned $405.10 that day. So then I booked an opportunity from Charlotte to Temple, Texas. Now, Temple, Texas. Why the fuck am I mentioning Temple, Texas? Is because that was actually the drop-off of an opportunity from this segment of the Gig Geezer after I picked up a load and dropped off from Charlotte to Irving, Texas, the Dallas, Texas area. About 25 minutes later, I had a last mile opportunity that was pick up in Arlington, and the drop-off was in Temple, Texas as well. In fact, where I got off on that same exit, whereas the first one from Arlington to Temple, I had to go veer right. This one I veered left, crossing the freeway, and that opportunity earned me $1,350. While in that area, Temple is like halfway between Waco, which is known for the Baylor Medical Center, and Baylor University, and then between Austin, Texas, the capital of Texas, University of Texas, the UT medical system and all, and Dell Computers. I opted to go back up to Waco, and I picked up a last mile opportunity on the Freight app that delivered to the SpaceX complex. And in fact, as I reached the guard shack, all of a sudden there's a rocket engine was being tested. Everybody's walking around like, oh, you know, just a part of the day. And I'm looking around and I'm feeling the ground like shaking a little bit. And oh man, that was an experience. That was an experience. But I was at the SpaceX complex, and of course there were Telsas that were hooked up to their charging ports and all. But that opportunity paid $34.74. I wasn't really concerned about it. It was just something to do as I set forth to head back to South Carolina. I arrived in Atlanta the next morning, Friday, October 27, and initially I had a load booked from Atlanta Airport going to North Charleston, but I'm like 10 minutes away from the pickup location, and I happen to check my emails, and I'm told, oh no, man, we can't do this one yet. I'm paraphrasing though, but basically there was some customs issue with the freight that I was to pick up. That opportunity really didn't pay what really was befitting for that opportunity, because I had another pickup just the weekend before, or last weekend, from Atlanta to the Charleston area that paid $525. This one's just going to pay $350, about $1.10 a mile. And so they did me a big favor, man. They did me a big favor by pulling me off of it, or scrubbing that load for the time being, as I was able to book two opportunities, stacking two opportunities from the Atlanta area. The first one paid $200, dropping off in the Clemson area, the Clemson, South Carolina area. And then from there, I had a drop off in the Asheville, North Carolina area that paid $350. So I had something that paid a hell of a lot more. I mean, the Clemson trip was along the way to North Carolina, so we're talking probably altogether 275 miles. I made $550, $2 a mile. And then I get back into Columbia, and then I do a DoorDash that paid $16.50 over near where I stay. So altogether, $566 earned that day. And now we're at this morning, And so I'm almost in 10 minutes into this segment of the Gig Geezer. And if you like the content that's been provided in this segment or any other segment, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. So I've given you the blow-by-blow rundown and all, but I'm going to highlight something else. Yesterday, Saturday, October 28, 2023, I happened to see a Bungie opportunity that appeared. And I'll just put it like this, as at least based on my knowledge from yesterday, that opportunity stayed up there for 6 hours at a minimum. 6 hours at a minimum. I approached Bungie about, hey, let's work something out here. They were offering 2 drivers $48.50 each to transport 30 80-pound bags of concrete, 2,400 plus pounds of a product. They were only offering $48 each. I approached them and said, I'll do it for $250 by myself. And I told them I have a Sprinter van. I gave them a specific arrival time, which would be before the pickup time that they requested. And they tell me currently that's not an amount we can offer. But I'll put your name down in the notes if it's something that we can do in the future. So then I told them, you'll be waiting and waiting. And I told them, if you work something out with me, you don't have to worry about, if you work something out with me, it's going to be done. Well, they said, we don't negotiate trips for the most part. Now, we also have one driver signed on. So they're like, yeah, we've got one thirsty. We just need one more. I'm telling you, we don't need you, geezer. And we're going to be able to get over on these drivers like we've been doing all along. Well, I said, I pity that driver, and I pity both drivers if you get them. Now, and then I went on to say, Bungie really gets a kick out of exploiting drivers' ignorance, thirst, and desperation. Now, not in that specific order, but then Bungie comes back and say, we're always courteous to our drivers, and we request the same back. If you're not happy with if you're not happy with how we structure Bungie, you're not required to taking any jobs. Have a great day. So basically, geezer, fuck you. That's basically what they were telling me. So, guess what? 5 hours later, I've been going back to the geezer pad, done uploaded one video, taking a nap, and guess what's still up? The same order. So I come back and tell them, you're right. I don't have to accept any offer that Bungie has. But if you ever look at my profile, I give an honest effort every time. It's now more than 4 hours later. That gig still hasn't moved. I offered $250 to do it myself. This was never about Bungie being courteous. This is about business. So then they reply, we're not going to be able to meet in the same place or any higher on the earnings. They're not moving. Basically, Bungie has just, in that interaction, Bungie has confirmed what I mentioned in this segment of the Gig Geezer and in this segment of the Gig Geezer, how Bungie thrives on driver thirst, desperation, and ignorance. And also Bungie has getting over on drivers big time. I'm not going to go off into the other history about my going back and forth with Bungie because I've said enough now. But if that isn't enough to get drivers to see how Bungie is getting over on you, let me give you some additional numbers here. I'm gonna throw some additional numbers. The reason why I've not said anything else other than just pointing out information is because I've known that there are things out there within the gig app space that if you do things enough, you kind of know how things work. But that same opportunity or similar opportunities, I have made more than double, even triple what Bungie was willing to pay 2 drivers. If you think I'm bullshitting you, I've said that, I've done that before. If you think I'm bullshitting you, here's some screenshots. Now, I'm not although I'm the one who edited this and all, what I'm going to do is read from a personal list, and then as I've edited this, I have put up screenshots that may be corresponding to the numbers or opportunities that I've mentioned. But here's just a few of them, what I mean, in which I've made double or even more than double or even triple what Bungie was willing to pay 2 drivers. Fort Mill, South Carolina to Cornelius, North Carolina. 2,190 pounds. This is one of my first ones. It was 20 slabs of sheetrock. It paid $187.20. Columbia, South Carolina, $203, 651 pounds. Orangeburg, South Carolina, $229, 687 pounds. Florence, South Carolina, $330, 2,306 pounds. Columbia, South Carolina, $257.50, 1,350 pounds. Sumter, South Carolina, $339.30. This includes a $20 tip that was given to me by the customer, $1,525. Florence, South Carolina, $259, 1,234 pounds. Sumter, South Carolina, $325, 1,820 pounds. Sumter, South Carolina, $284, 1,650 pounds. Last one that I'll mention, Columbia, South Carolina, $249, 1,950 pounds. So, those of you who think that I am talking down on you or trying to insult you, I am not. What I'm trying to do is hip you to what's going on out there. You're being fucked over by Bungie, and Bungie knows it, and they're laughing in your face every single time you accept opportunities like that. Now, I mentioned in this segment of the Gig Geezer how I've averaged like $85 an opportunity. But hey, I started out just like you, but I caught on, and so I have been very selective with the opportunities that I've accepted on the Bungie app, and that's why my average opportunity has gone up to $85. And if anybody really looks closely, most of my opportunities that I've accepted have paid at least $100. Now, does that mean that they're all befitting of the money that was earned? They may not, but I certainly have minimized how Bungie has tried to fuck over me as well. That is the point. Know your worth. Know your worth. Know your worth. So now, what we're going to do is go ahead on with the day. It's about 10:15, 10:20 or something. It's about 10:15, 10:20. I need to go inside and pick up what I think are doors, and then we're going to document the rest of this this time out. All right, I am probably about 10-12 minutes away from the second freight pickup, and this is in Sumter, South Carolina. Personally, I'm taking a route into Sumter that I used to take many a times, like almost 20 years ago. In fact, I'm about to pass by the actual business location of one of my early group medical benefit customers. And the owner has since passed, and his business was sold to someone else. But this is a route that I used to take many a times to go. But anyway, I'm also going to have to stop and put some money in the tank before I pick up here at the Sumter location, the Lowe's Sumter location. This is where, as I mentioned in this segment of the Gig Geezer, where I met a subscriber, actually two subscribers, where I'm about to pick up for gas. First of all, is where I met subscribers, a husband and wife combination at the gas station, and then at the Lowe's, I met a young man who's about to start, who's looking to start up his own box truck enterprise. And so the items, it says it's 3 items, 150 pounds. My guess, if it's 3 items, 150 pounds, it could be 3 slabs of wood, it could be 3 slabs of sheetrock, it could be 3 bags of cement or mulch or potting soil. It could be any of those items. It could even be garden rocks, but 3 items. Shouldn't take long. The drop-off location is about 10 to 15 minutes from the store, and then after that, I'll be jetting back to Columbia to do a catering opportunity on the Delivered app. I hadn't mentioned any of the specifics of it, but I'll put it like this: it will put me over 3 G's for the week, 3 pounds for the week. Alrighty, I am about less than 5 minutes removed from having dropped off what I anticipated were slabs of wood. There were 2 slabs of wood, and then an 8x2 slab of wood as well. That paid $34.02. Now, is that one that I would normally take? Probably not, unless it was local or unless I was able to stack it with something. Now, in this strategy, I stacked another Lowe's opportunity with this one to justify the miles. But the kicker is going to be, the clincher is going to be really the delivered order. That makes up for everything, because that opportunity is going all of like 10 minutes to someone's house, and I'll get $144 and change. So when you start talking miles driven, we're talking more than a 2-to-1 mile ratio, probably 3-to-1 mile ratio. If I had not taken this trip, oh yeah, the mile ratio would have been even more attractive. But I was also looking to reach 3,000 for the week, and all these opportunities have put me at $3,036 and change. That's the reason why I'm doing this. That's also the reason behind this segment of the Gig Geezer. I'm no different than you in that I have had my moments of concern in recent weeks, and you may say even recent months. I've shared many a times how when I'm concerned, I don't sleep, and I'm up contemplating and deliberating a lot of things, trying to figure out what's going to be my next best strategy in terms of money earned, revenue, I should say generating revenue. All I can say is that I know that I put a lot of time and effort in what I've been doing in this spinner/cargo van enterprise. And yes, I'd like to think that the work is showing it's paying off in the revenue that's been generated so far this year. First year operation generating, we're closing in in over $100,000. That's pretty damn good. I mean, I'd spoken early in the year how it had been my goal to generate $8,000-9,000 a month. I shared in this segment of the Gig Geezer how that was my breakpoint number. And even then, with me now hitting $10,000 a month consistently, I mean, I still got to keep pushing it, because there are just things that have to be righted from the initial startup, and I've not gotten to that point. But the teaser was, it's slow, but there's still money to be earned. How is it then be earned? DDK over at Cars and Cribs pointed out something that I admit that I've been a little slack with noting in any of my segments of the Gig Geezer, in that he mentioned how market is very important. If you're not proximate to a good market or a large market, or one that there's a lot of activity, then you may not have the opportunities. The reason why I often mention the Columbia, South Carolina metropolitan area is because most people don't know jack shit about Columbia, South Carolina. I mean, it's the capital of the state. It's in the middle. It's in the exact geographic middle of the state, but it is not this burgeoning metropolitan area. Quite frankly, it is not. There are other areas in South Carolina that are fast growing. The Greenville-Spartanburg metropolitan area is fast growing. The Charleston, South Carolina metropolitan area is definitely growing. And Rock Hill, Fort Mill, that area up there, it can't be absorbed by Charlotte, but I mean, it has benefited from Charlotte's growth, and it's overflowed into that part of the state. That said, market has a lot to do with it, and I've been perhaps irresponsible, but my point with using Columbia is that I'm not in Charlotte. I'm not in Atlanta. Charlotte is 90 minutes away. Atlanta's 3 hours away. Okay, but yet I've tried to make the most of the opportunities that I've had here. I've tried to make the most. I've tried to maximize what I'm doing, and so that's the whole point with pointing out to you that there is money to be made. One other point, when I mentioned about coming back in through Atlanta, and I had a load waiting on me. My goal was to try to convert and get something else out of Atlanta. And when that initial load was scrapped, and I was able to connect on two, that made it much better. I felt much better leaving Atlanta knowing that I had $550 than $350. That always sounds better, especially when it's situations such that they were both linear in terms of they were both linear in terms of they're along the way with each other. There was a route that I could justify. So I've mentioned many times in past segments of the Gig Geezer about the components to how I've been doing things. Gig apps. I mean, some people don't like, there are those people who really look down on gig apps. But gig apps are definitely an option. I've shared in recent segments of the Gig Geezer how when I've actually done true over-the-road opportunities, I've converted on some gig app opportunities that had added to the total. In fact, on this last over-the-road opportunity, which I went directly from Charlotte through Columbia to Temple, Texas, gig apps only contributed $35, but in the previous trip to Texas, gig apps contributed over $350. That was just as good as a damn booked opportunity. But overall with this over-the-road opportunity, my goal was to make somewhere between $2,000 and $2,200. That's what I'm talking about. My initial goal had always been to incorporate road driving of some kind, be it regional or local, but then also maybe the over-road opportunities. And so I'm actually performing according to the strategy that I initially laid out. I was always open to a Texas opportunity, specifically Houston, but maybe Dallas. So I've worked those I-35 was the farthest I wanted to go into Texas, be it through Dallas or through San Antonio. But then the local and regional opportunities. Obviously, local for me is going to be anything that's within a 200-mile radius. That's going to be local because that's 3 hours. Okay, and then regional could be seen as if I had to go into Georgia or North Carolina or Florida and be able to come back home the same day and be home that night. That's regional for me. Then again, gig apps, gig food opportunities, because the fact of the matter is that with many of these apps, you're able to turn on the app and earn money wherever you are. Then there's the last mile opportunities. With many of the apps, the same thing. You can turn on the apps wherever you are. It doesn't mean that you have to be locked into one particular place, although there are a few apps that are like that. Then there are the catering opportunities. Those are kind of limited to local. But on a day like this, a catering opportunity really came up clutch. The catering opportunity delivered actually is going to make my week in terms of where I wanted to be. I felt that if I had that $1,300 opportunity that I should be flirting with 3Gs. And so this got me there. All right, I am leaving PDQ with this catering order. The total amount of the order itself was $828.28. Nice little palindrome there. And the actual payment amount to me was $144.32. $20 base, the rest in tip. Now that's something that I'm more likely to accept. I actually had an order that I was to accept earlier in the week, actually on Wednesday, and that one was to pay $185, but it was a $3,300 order. Now, you have to kind of have to ask yourself, would you have taken that one even if it was a $3,300 order? Well, I've had a $33,000 plus order, but I was paid well over $300, and so I actually threw it back because I booked the opportunity from Charlotte to Temple, Texas, and so I don't feel bad about that because the question was $185 or $1,300 plus dollars, $1,350. I took the $1,350 route. Some people would say, why in the fuck would I drive 1,000 miles to Texas for $1,350? Well, that's actually a good run. When you think of, if you look at other content where people have been taking shit at 60, 70, 80 cent a mile, 90 cent a mile, I mean, I'd be a fool documenting that I drove to Temple, Texas and made only $750, and I would have generated $750 worth of revenue. But that said, altogether, when I count everything, the business generated $1,950 those 2 days. Then you add $230 plus dollars. So the business generated from Wednesday till today $2,200 $2,100 and change, just shy of $2,200. I'm okay with that. I'm getting better with these opportunities in terms of connecting on finding additional load opportunities when I'm out on the road. But then again, there are some things in which I don't have control. I look for opportunities from Austin, from San Antonio, from Houston, from Dallas. When I did see them, I was well on my way back to South Carolina. Enough said. But back to the catering opportunity. I passed on $185 for $1,350 at a minimum. When I was in Atlanta, I passed on a $180 dispatch opportunity, knowing that I had $550 in my hand, in my back pocket. Now, in part, I passed on it because of the $550, but also that dispatch opportunity was going in the opposite direction in Georgia. So it made no sense for me to accept that. But it is nice when you have put yourself in a position where you can decline opportunities that you may have taken a very serious look at or may have eagerly accepted. So, I'm about probably 7-8 minutes away from the catering drop-off location. It took my full primary catering bags that I used, plus an addition, a fifth bag. I've got 2 more bags that I use from time to time, but I'm having to replace them, so I'm down to like 5 bags now. And maybe at some point I will invest in another 5 bags for this personal enterprise, this business operation. But I don't do as many catering opportunities as I did at the beginning of the year, and that kind of plays into one last thing I want to share. Exactly a year ago, October 2022, the primary gig food apps of DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, Instacart, they comprised 67% of my income. I earned in October 2022 $6,154 and change. And again, DoorDash, Grubhub, Uber Eats, and Instacart accounted for 67%. And then when I add the two catering apps, Delivered and Delivered That, which generated another $1,676, basically all of my money was earned on gig food apps. Now, of course, a year ago, I was operating primarily out of my F-150. This year, a year later, I'm operating out of a Sprinter/cargo van. And the dynamic of the business has shifted to where gig food apps are going to likely account for less than 5% of the revenue generated by this business enterprise. The greater majority of it, in fact, more than likely about 60% of it, generated from brokered opportunities, working load boards, brokered opportunities. The remaining amount is being generated from the last mile delivery apps. If there's anything that I remind myself while I'm out here, and even though I did an actual segment on the Gig Geezer about from hero to zero, that was from month in, where I had a pretty good month and then I started zero. But I'm reminding myself of hero to zero every single day. While I've had now some, while now I've gotten on the one, I've made multiple $1,000 plus days, and I've gotten used to seeing $400, $500, $600, $700 in a day. Every day I go from hero to zero. Every day I start at zero. And so that's the thing that pushes me, in that I don't want to come home with a zero earnings day as I did in this segment of the Gig Geezer, although there were circumstances that contributed to it. My thing is, when I'm out here to make money. I used to say that at the beginning of many of my early Gig Geezer segments about when I'm out here driving, I'm out here to make money. And that's what it's all about. So again, yes, it is slower out here, but yet there are opportunities out here. It's a matter of us finding them. It's a matter of us maximizing the opportunities that we have when we get them too. And with that, if you like the content that's been provided in this segment of the Gig Geezer and any other segment of the Gig Geezer, hit that subscribe button, give my content a thumbs up, share my content among others, and I definitely welcome your comments in the section below. I'm in Wood Lane. As always, may your grind and may your hustle continue.